ladies and gentlemen. This is World Talks on TVP World, where every word matters. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and now please join me and my guests on this exclusive interview. Recent tensions in the Baltic Sea saw Finnish and Swedish jets intercepting Russian fighters operating without flight plans or transponders. This underscores the strategic importance of Finland and Sweden's recent NATO membership and highlights the enhanced coordination within the alliance. Meanwhile, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen called for a comprehensive European air shield, adds to the discussion on bolstering Europe's defense capabilities. Joining us on TVP World to explore the implications of the evolving security landscape is Magdalena Jakubowska, a security expert. Hello, ma'am, and welcome to TVP World.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So this is perhaps the first time we see any very major movement when it comes to Finland, NATO, in the NATO alliance that really demonstrate how much cooperation could be done. Can you help us give us a little backdrop on the recent interception of these Russian fighters and what's the significance of this event?
So it's not the first interception in the Baltics or around of the Russian planes all around Europe, of course. But this is like the first moment where you can really see Finnish and Swedish cooperation within the NATO. Admittedly, it must be said that a huge fleet of fighters has been accessed together with Sweden and Finland. This is comparable to UK number of fighters now acquired within the NATO. So of course it required lots of trainings and preparations, but now we can see it works. It's visible that the coordination is there. These were not only, this has been strategized and planned action.
Right. Yeah, like we were seeing before even Finland, NATO, and Sweden joined NATO, the interoperability and the coordination in these drills with these countries with NATO is already like a very, very kind of comprehensive. We see a lot of them already drilling together. That is a prelude. And now we see them actually operating under the NATO umbrella that actually does increase the defensive capabilities of the NATO member states. Now, when it comes to Finland and Sweden as NATO members, how's the strategic balance in the Baltic region shifted? Has this made Russia's position a little bit more precarious?
Well, of course, the position of Russia has changed with that. Baltic is now surrounded with the NATO countries only, apart from a small part in Kaliningrad. And of course, Russia will be using this as an explanation to its actions. But nonetheless, having Baltic Sea a little, closed in a sense, to only NATO countries, it's the position of NATO in case of any attack is way bigger, of course, and it's airspace, of course, but also in the sea.
All right, and of course, when we talk about the security situation in Europe, we traditionally think of NATO and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, but during the recent inauguration speak, Ursula von der Leyen herself mentioned security and defense like 12 times during her speech, emphasizing the importance of security within the European Union in and of itself. We do have a footage of that. We can take a look.
And this is the vision I have set out in my political guidelines. A vision of a stronger Europe that delivers prosperity, that protects people, and that defends democracy. A stronger Europe that delivers social fairness and supports people. A stronger Europe that implements what it agrees in a fair way.
So my question would be, traditionally we look at NATO almost as the defense wing of the European Union. But recently, with the talks of a potential Trump presidency and a more isolationist approach to NATO, as well as his running mate J.D. Vance being very critical about support for Ukraine, do you think that Ursula von der Leyen putting so much emphasis on defense is a sign that the European Union itself also needs their own sort of defense system without just overly relying on NATO?
So the reason is not Mr. Trump or what's happening in American politics, but the reason is Russia, right? And the threat that the EU has at its borders. So it's, of course, many other aspects are constituting to that, but it was expected that Ursula von der Leyen will put much more effort on defense. This is obvious that the EU has to develop its own capabilities to be independent. Nevertheless, NATO is a key strategic alliance, defense alliance, but EU has to have their own options to fight for own territories in case Russia invades or the threat is higher. Of course, von der Leyen was very explicit that this is an important part of her strategy. This is not only about defense, but this is also about economic prosperity, development, innovations, and obviously this defense factor and protecting from Russia, protecting also Ukraine, is now very visible to us. But this is not the only reason. Of course, expecting Mr. Trump in the US and knowing his attitude towards defense spending, requirements that he has, and how much vocal he is about that, is also kind of triggering more work on European capabilities.
All right, I think that's a very balanced approach to look at things. And at the end of the day, a lot of us would like to kind of point fingers at each other in the Western alliance. Oh, okay, United States this, France that, Germany this. But at the end of the day, the enemy's out there named Russia, right? And so drawing back to that topic, we still see Russian military aircraft operating without flight plans, transponders, and international airspace. Why do you think the Russia have been doing that? Are there any motives behind it? Is it just carelessness, or are there maybe a little bit of provocation aspect of it?
That's not pure carelessness, of course. I kind of don't believe. There's a lot of provocative movements that Russia does. Ukraine, there is a full-scale war, but to Europe, but not only to Europe, also further to the south, Russia is doing many of hybrid movements, and I don't think Russia or the Kremlin would decide to somehow pass the red line of NATO land, but nonetheless, such actions are really, worrisome, and to me, to EU together with NATO countries, the West as such, should have like a clear strategy how to behave when the Kremlin crosses those lines, and it's very much about crossing the lines also in Ukraine, but nonetheless we should be prepared. We should have strategy. NATO has concrete plans in case of war, in case of the attack, but nonetheless there will be more and more provocations, and we should know how to act, how to condemn it politically, but also show our strength by defense, by the hard stuff.
Right. And speaking of collective defense and organizations within the European Union, I would also like to point a focus on the Weimar Triangle, because we do see a little bit of waning in political power with a lot of the figures that's been participating in the Weimar Triangle. We see Macron losing popularity in France, Scholz also dipping in popularity in Germany, with maybe Toland being the only person now figure in Weimar Triangle that still has a very strong political standing within the country. Do you think that this fact might, the Weimar Triangle being so crucial for European security, how do you foresee the future given this political tensions?
Well, there are political changes, and this is, of course, a normal situation that the governments are changing, some lose popularity, obviously. Now the situation is that Poland can be a lead, can bring together maybe not popular but still very important, very influential leads of France and Germany to the table. They have a strong history of consensus, of getting together. So nonetheless, I think that this French-German alliance and leadership to Europe will stay. It will require more conversations, more consensus, and I think Poland will be a great intermediate in that. So especially with the strong position of Mr. Tusk and kind of his authority in those countries. So.
Right. And of course, we've been talking extensively about air defense. And one of the things during the Washington NATO summit, or even discussions before the summit took place, is a lot is focused on air defense. That previously NATO is known for being more offensive when it comes to the air. And now that they're kind of reeling it in and putting more investment on the sorely needed air defense system, what do you think has shifted?
Well, the need is there. I mean, we have to make it work, no matter what the alliance we think of, right? Mm-hmm. We have to make it work so that our defense, our air defense, whatever part of our resilience is built up. Mm-hmm. And it has to work quickly because Russia, as we see, doesn't sleep. Mm-hmm. So there are, as we said, multiple provocations. Situation in Ukraine is kind of stable at the moment. It doesn't move any further. It doesn't
there's a little bit of stalemate there.
It is, in a sense. So, we have time to invest, to do our job, and we should do it.
Right. Thank you so much for your input and insight and helping us understand this situation. Really appreciate it. And thanks again for being with us on TVP World.
Thank you so much.
Cheers. And with that, we conclude this edition of our interview. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.